Good morning to the second year students. Today's topic is regarding the calcium channel blockers and diuretics. This is in pharmacology. In pharmacology, in cardio, it will come under the cardiovascular system. In cardiovascular system, it has been divided into antihypertensives. In antihypertensives, we have already dealt with the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, angiotensin receptor blockers, beta blockers, alpha blockers, and then central sympatholitics, calcium channel blockers, and diuretics. So we did not discuss regarding these two topics. So today we'll discuss these two topics in detail. So what is the calcium channel blockers? So classification. So calcium channel blockers, it has been classified into three types: phenylalkyline, benzodiazepine, dihydropyridines. So phenylalkyline, verapamil, and benzodiazepine, diltiazem, dihydropyridines, nifedipine, amlodipine, nimodipine, and this dipine type of drugs will come under all this classification. So first of all, what happens? So when you see and when you assume this is a cardiac, and actually cardiac muscles will have some cardiac cells. So cardiac muscle will have the cells will form as a cell muscle. So these cells will called as a myocytes. So this is a cardiac myocytes. This is inside cell, this is outside cell, you assume. So when the depolarization is going on, what will be happening? The calcium will enter through the calcium channel. So there will be a calcium channel things. So this is a calcium channel. So during depolarization, this calcium channel will enter into the cells through the calcium channel. Calcium will enter into the cell through the calcium channels. So after entering into the calcium channel, calcium will become stored over here, and then calcium act on the muscles, and it will create a muscle contraction. So these drugs for calcium, calcium channel blockers will act over here. So they will block this reaction. So when they will block this reaction, the muscles will become relaxed. So the calcium channel, these muscles will become relaxed. So this is that. So this is the same thing, but another picture, and with different types of drugs where they act over there. So, and then for this type, all these three types of calcium channel blockers will inhibit or will slow the calcium channels. L type will slow the channels in both smooth muscles as well as cardiac myocytes, SA and AV nodal cells. These L types calcium channels mediate, they will enter. Now I have shown in the picture, they will enter into the calcium will enter into the cells in response to the depolarization. In response to the depolarization, this calcium channel cells will enter into the cells and may causes the triggering contraction. Generally, this calcium channel blockers will inhibit this function, and resulting in what they will result, the smooth muscle will get relaxed. So they will block. So the smooth muscle will get, in spite of contraction, the smooth muscle will get relaxed. Whenever especially the blood vessels also get relaxed. So heart has a negative inotropic effect. Force of contraction and chronotropic effect means heart rate effects. So heart will have a negative effect and chronotropic. Heart rate is also effect. These calcium channel blockers are effective. So this is effective in decreasing the frequency and severity of the, because of that frequency and severity of the angina will be decreased. And the utility of classical angina is probably due to decrease in the cardiac work or occurring due to because of reduced afterload. So probably decreased by cardiac work. And utility of variant angina is due to their action of preventing arterial spasm. So definitely in angina, what will be happening? Atrial spasm will be decreased. So whenever it will be decreased, the flow will be increased. This verapamil is more prominent thing. This is a cardiac depressant. It causes a negative inotropic effect on them, and chronotropic and bromotropic effects causing bradycardia. So verapamil, what will they do? It may leads to the if they give, it may have a bad effects on the heart. So because of that, they will give according to that. This dihydrolysin things or what will happen? DHPs, on other hand, more selectively for smooth muscle calcium channel, causing vasodilation. So DHPs, what we will do? They may have a chance of getting hypertension, tachycardia, vasodilation. These are the minor effects, but they do not cause cardiac depressant effect. Only verapamil will causes the cardiac depressant effect. All these drugs will not cause anything. And diltiazem has an intermediate cardiac and peripheral actions. So the diltiazem will have a intermediate and cardiac peripheral actions. So this verapamil is available in 40 mg, 80 mg, 120 mg. It can be available in injection form, 5 mg to 5 mg per 2 ml. It will be available, and then 120 to 40 is also available. It can be given as a oral route and also IV route. This action will start at 30 minutes. The IV means immediately the action will be starting. Time peak concentration is 1 to 2 hours or 3 to 5 hours. IV injection. So single dose 2 to 8 hours. If we again multiple doses, 4 to 12 hours it can be given. And then more than 90% of the doses is orally absorbed. So 90% of the doses are orally absorbed. It undergoes extensive first pass hepatic metabolism. It means it may be metabolized in the liver. So it will be so this bioavailability may be ranges for 20 to 30%. Bioavailability means availability of the drug in the blood. So it will be for 20 to 35%. So for that only they have to rehydrate the chronic stable angina. So in treatment of chronic stable angina, this drugs can be, verapamil can be given. It can be given as 80 to 120 mg. So it is also given in treatment of atrial flutters, atrial fibrillations, supraventricular tachycardia, all this type of, and paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. In all this type of treatments, it can be given as a divided doses or repeated doses. It can be given as a boluses also. Drug interaction, when it interacted with the metoprolol, all type of drugs, it may decreases the creatinine clearance, and then it may leads to the increases the levels of so it may decreases the creatinine clearance. And antihypertensive drugs, some of they have, it may have an effect also. It given with combination with other antihypertensive drugs, it may lower the blood pressure. So and then antiarrhythmia, when it is given with the arrhythmic drugs, it may have a bad effect on the cardiovascular system. So it avoid using this, both antiarrhythmic drugs and antihypertensive drugs. Immunosuppressants, when it given with the immunosuppressants, it may have adverse effects with immunosuppressants. Lithium is also gives, because lithium levels will be decreased in the blood. Alcohol, when the patient is consuming alcohol, what will be happening? Verapamil furthermore increases the blood alcohol levels. Adverse effects: bradycardia, constipation, flushing, headache, ankle edema, and not only this, these are the common. And according to the system, CNS, dizziness, headache, sleep disturbances, CVS means bradycardia, AV block, atrioventricular block will be there, asystole, hypertension, heart failure, peripheral edema, flushing. In GIT, constipation, nausea, dyspepsia, and respiratory dyspnea, pulmonary edema, upper respiratory infection, sinusitis, pharyngitis, skin rashes. Contraindications: hypersensitivity, if they are hypersensitivity to verapamil, and severe left ventricular dysfunction is there, severe hypotension, atrial flutter, atrial fibrillation. Elderly use with caution. Pregnancy, if indicated only, it should be lactation. It may be appears in the breast milk, so it can be avoided. Diltiazem. So this diltiazem 30 tablets, 30 mg or 60 mg can be given. Injection form, it is also given 25 mg per 5 ml. Diltiazem is well absorbed from GIT. So it is absorbed from GIT and undergoes. It is also undergoing hepatic metabolism in the hepatic. Oral bioavailability is around 40%. If it is 40%. Indications: it can be given in chronic stable angina, in hypertensions, and along with combination therapy, treatment of atrial flutter, atrial fibrillations, and supraventricular arrhythmias, and drug interaction. When it is interacted with any beta blockers, so what will be happening? It may have a bradycardia, and then it may prolong the conduction time will be there, and then it may lead to the heart failure also. So it should be given with caution. Benzodiazepams, when it get given with the benzodiazepams like diazepam, midazolam, all this time, it may increase the CNS effects. And then cyclosporins, diltiazem may increase the cyclosporin level. Cimetidine, it may inhibit the diltiazem mechanism, thereby increasing the plasma levels. Rifampicin, it may reduce the diltiazem plasma levels. And then digoxin. Diltiazem may increase the digoxin levels, digoxin toxicity kind. See, adverse effect, common adverse effect of edema, headache, nausea, dizziness. CVS, definitely headache, dizziness, fatigue, sleep disturbances. Cardiovascular system, bradycardia, edema, flushing, AV block, conduction abnormality, arrhythmia, hypertension, all these things. GIT, nausea, constipation, dyspepsia, skin rashes, and other are mild increase in the liver enzymes. Contraindications. These contraindications are hypersensitivity to diltiazem, severe hypotension or cardiogenic shock, sick sinus syndrome or 2 or 3 degree AV block, acute MI, pulmonary congestion documented by the X-rays on admission, atrial flutter or atrial fibrillation. Pregnancy, lactation. During lactation, it will be appear in breast milk, so it has to be discontinued. Elderly, use with caution. Children, not recommended. Coming to our well-known drug, that is amlodipine. Amlodipine is an unique dihydroxypyridine. This is an dihydroxypyridine. It undergoes slow and complete oral absorption, so it is have a prolonged effect. Its half-life is 30 to 50 hours, so it is a very having long half-life. And then half-life produces minimal peaks through in the plasma, resulting in lesser incidence of early vasodilator and adverse effects. Reflex tachycardia is compared to the nifedipine. Amlodipine produces coronary dilatation. What it causes? Amlodipine coronary dilatation and peripheral arterial dilatation with hemodynamic profile similar to the nifedipine also. So its action is coronary dilatation and peripheral arterial dilatation. Actually, this is can be suitable for one's daily dose. So it can, because it can be half-life is 30 to 50 hours, so it can be given as a oral dose in OD dose, and it can be used to prevent angina and hypertension. It can be available as a 2.5 mg and 10 mg forms. So indications. So nifedipine is generally nifedipine is very slow and completely absorbed from the GIT. Oral bioavailability is 65 to 90%. And indications are dosages are chronic stable angina, treatment of vasospastic variant and presumental angina. Angiographically documented CEDs in patients with heart failure or ejection fraction. Adults initially 5 to 10 mg orally once daily. It can be given. Most of the patients require 10 mg daily. Elderly patients with hepatic impairment initially fine. And hypertension, it can be in hypertension in adults and children. It's also been given. Adverse effects: headache, peripheral edema because of slow absorption. So its half-life is long. Relatively, it will be in the plasma levels. The drug will be available in the plasma levels. So definitely this adverse effects are seen. So we have to observe that further adverse effects because of slow absorption and having half-life will be prolonged half-life because of that only. It may cause us if it is available in more time available in the blood, it means it may create more dilatation. So if more dilatation is there, patient may go into the hypotension, flushing, headache, dizziness more or likely, and then not all the things. So compared to nifedipine, this amlodipine is prescribed because of that, because more adverse effect in the nifedipine rather than this amlodipine. And then CNS: headache, dizziness, fatigue, somnolence, peripheral edema, flushing, palpitation, GIT, nausea, abdominal pain, dyspepsia, constipation, diarrhea, respiratory system, dyspnea, cough, musculoskeletal system, muscle cramps, arthralgia, myalgia, all this. Contraindications means when they are hypersensitivity to amlodipine. In case of pregnancy, in case of elderly age, dose should be reduced. Lactation, not known. It is not known that drug is excreted in breast milk or not. Children, not recommended for children. So assess any allergies to drug. Definitely we have to assess any allergies to the drug and assess for any impaired renal or hepatic system or coronary artery disease, pregnancy or lactation status. Assess for cardiac system, pulse, pulse, BP, cardiac rhythm, ECG, severe angina. Assess BP, cardiac rhythm, serum, potassium, renal and hepatic studies, bleeding of gum periodically. Teach the patient and family member regarding how to check the pulse, BP and keep record. Contact with the healthcare personals. Instruct not to consume alcohol, avoid alcohol or smoking, limit caffeine use, avoid grapefruit juices, and educate and encourage to compel with the medical regimen. Instruct patient not to involve any hazardous activities like driving, hold, other bending, jumping, that such type of activities, because it may create dizziness to them. Instruct patient to avoid sudden change of position to prevent the syncope. Instruct not to discontinue suddenly. Advise to report if she or he experiencing the swallowing. We'll go with the diuretics. Diuretics are further classified into high efficacy diuretics, low efficacy diuretics, medium efficacy diuretics. So these high efficacy diuretics are nothing but loop diuretics. These loop diuretics are one of the common known drug is the furosemide, torsemide, bumetanide. So medium efficacy diuretics are hydrochlorothiazide, chlorothiazide, and indapamide, all this type of drugs. Weak adjunctive diuretics are nothing but potassium sparing diuretics, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, osmotic diuretics. So this weak diuretics are potassium sparing diuretics, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors and osmotic diuretics. So these are the drugs. In potassium sparing diuretics, spironolactone and this amiloride. So this having a and then carbonic anhydrase, acetazolamide, osmotic diuretics is nothing but mannitol. So these are the drugs. So where this carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, this carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, where they act, we'll see. This is a weak diuretics, so they act over that. Where they act, we'll see. So in proximal convoluted tubules, this carbonic anhydrase inhibitors will act. At the distal convoluted tubules, this thiazide will act. This loop diuretics means it at the loops of Henle, this loop diuretics will act. What will be happening? This bicarbonate levels will be going out. And then potassium sparing diuretics. This potassium sparing diuretics will act over the it may be at the stage of the collecting ducts, urine will be excreted, so they will be acting. So loop diuretics, it inhibit the potassium, sodium, potassium, calcium co-transport. It will inhibit the sodium, potassium, chloride co-transport at the loop of Henle. It acts at the level of loop of Henle. It is a prototype member of the class. It is a rapid acting and highly efficacy diuretics. So when you remember your excretory system, so what will be happening, this potassium, all the things will be excreted in or excreted out. So it will take when if you know that when the patient is taking more amount of water, he may have a more diluted urine. If he is taking less amount of water, he or she may get the concentrated urine. So how it will be getting means because of excretion that occur in the nephron. So during the excretion, some of the reactions will be occurring. So this inhibit the way sodium potassium 2 chloride transport will be inhibited. So because of this inhibition, what will be happening, whatever the urine will be there, it will be coming out excessively. So it is a rapid acting efficacy drugs. Major site of action is thick ascending loop of Henle. So thick ascending loop of Henle, where they are inhibiting means stopping the sodium and potassium 2 chloride transport. The co-transport is inhibited. The furosemide is used to treatment of the, so because of that it can be used in treatment of the edema. So here it's once check here, actually this will be going on. Sodium, potassium and chloride transport. So particularly, so when the patient is in edema, at that time because this fluid will be gone into the interstitial spaces, so definitely this drug will grab the fluid from there, and then through the intravascular system, all the fluid will be coming out of the excretory system. Excretory system, it is particularly effect reducing the edema, and in case of any nephrotic syndrome, and then major use of loop diuretics in treatment of acute pulmonary edema. Definitely it can be given the acute pulmonary edema. In case of any peripheral vascular effect, at that time it is given. And left ventricular what will be means it reduces the left ventricular filling pressure, and rapidly it may reduces the pulmonary edema. So it may be available in the 40 mg, 100 mg, 10 mg, and Lasix can be given. Sometimes it can be given up to 500 mg also. In case of injection, 250 mg for 25 ml. Indications: edema, acute pulmonary edema, and then cerebral edema. It can be given. So in case of cerebral edema, osmotic diuretics are mainly used. Furosemide can be given to increase the efficacy of the drug, so it can be given in combination. Hypertension, thiazides are usually preferred. Loop diuretics, in case of thiazides are preferred. In hypertension, in case of thiazides are preferred. This loop diuretics are given because only it's an emergency. It may causes a chance of renal impairment or heart failure. In case of these conditions, both drugs can be given in. Edema, in edema is also in edema, definitely it can be given like this, and hypertension and pulmonary edema it can be given like this 40 mg water. And adverse effects of CNS, headache, dizziness, vertigo, paresthesia, restlessness, weakness, all these symptoms. And CVS, orthostatic hypertension, thrombophlebitis after IV administration, eye and ENT infection, eye and ENT type of adverse effects are blurred vision, yellow vision, transient deafness, hearing impairment, tinnitus, GIT, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, constipation, hepatic means increased liver enzymes, jaundice, hepatic dysfunction, hematological anemia, leukopenia, thrombocytopenia, aplastic anemia, granulocytes. So these are all some of the metabolic also, and some of the skin reactions can also be seen. Drug interaction when it is interacted with ototoxic drugs, that is aminoglycosides, cisplatin, it may furosemide increases the ototoxicity. So if it is given with combination, ototoxicity will be increased. Amphotericin B and corticosteroids are also have a chance of risk of hypokalemia when given with combination. So hypertension, antihypertensives, so when it given with this drug, risk of hypertension is more. And cyclosporins, if given in case of any gout arthritis, it may have a recurrent use, may increase the gout arthritis. So cyclosporins in combination with this drug is given, it may have a risk of gout arthritis. NSAIDs decreases the diuretic effect. So actually for this furosemide, we for our diuretic purpose only we are giving. When it given with the combination with NSAIDs, it decreases the diuretic effect. Phenytoin, when it given with the diuretics, it decreases the diuretic effect of the furosemide. So this is the contraindication: hypersensitivity to the furosemide, severe sodium and volume depletion, and patients with anuria. So and then we may have chances of severe in the country volume will be, all the volume will be coming out. So there may be chances of sodium and volume will be depleted out. So they may land up into the severe dehydrations. So that has to be seen recurrently. Pregnancy, if indicated only, it will be breast baby appear in the breast milk, so it can stop the lactation also. Elderly use with caution. It's a nursing consideration. So the same nursing consideration to this, when allergies to the furosemide or sulfonamides, any renal problems, and hepatic coma and diabetes mellitus, we have to assess that and assess the cardiac status and respiratory status, all these things. So when you are assessing the cardiac status, so definitely you have to see for BP in lying down and standing positions, or on tachycardia. Tachycardia is there or not, because hypokalemia is one of the complication, one of the side effect. No, so the respiratory system is definitely you have to see rate, depth, rhythm, lung sounds. And renal system, IO chart, maintenance of IO chart, weight, sodium potassium levels has to be checked, blood urea levels and uric acid levels, glucose in the urine, and that has to be checked. Sudden change of the position should be avoided. I would advise the patient to take the drug with food, or because it may create the gastric symptoms, it may have adverse effects on the GI system, so it should be taken with the food. Assess the vital signs, BP, definitely pulse, respiration before and after administration of the drug. This is a very important. So definitely we have to check the BP, only we have to give the drug, because if it is less than 90, or if it is less than 100, or at that thing, so systolic BP, if it is less than 100, it should be avoided. So the doctors will be writing the instructions. Advise the patient to follow therapeutic regimen, like definitely they have to have a regular exercise, right, relaxation therapies, all these things. So it as per the time schedules, it should be given, because not only that, furosemide, it should be given in the morning times itself only. It should not be given in the night times, because it may have a more urination effect. So remember that thing. To torsemide, torsemide. This similar to the furosemide in all aspects. It's more potent drug. It is more rapid and completely oral absorption. Have a longer half life. It will be in the blood. So it is indicated in the treatment of edema and hypertension. Bumetanide. So it is also similar to the furosemide. It is given in all aspects except 40%. It more potent. It induces quick diuresis. So it is very quick diuresis, highly effective in pulmonary edema. It is a lipid soluble and have a oral bioavailability around 80%. It is indicated for the treatment of edema associated with congestive heart failure in case of hepatic and renal diseases. This thiazide diuretics will act at the inhibiting the only sodium and chloride symport increase and luminal membrane in the distal convoluted tubule. So it will act at the distal convoluted tubule. So it will inhibit the sodium and chloride transport. So it will inhibit all this. So definitely it will increase this luminal membrane in the distal convoluted tubule. So inhibiting the symport increases the sodium chloride and potassium excretion. It will stop excreting the sodium chloride and potassium. So and however they are only moderately efficacy. So it will be moderately efficacy. There is a 90%, and sodium filtered sodium load is already observed the sodium load is already reabsorbed before reaching the distal convoluted tubule itself. Hydrochlorothiazides. These hydrochlorothiazides are used in treatment of edema associated with heart disease, liver diseases, renal diseases. These thiazides are used widely in the treatment of hypertension. It may be given alone, or it may be given with combination with other hypertensives. And these thiazides are more effective, more efficacy drugs and less expensive and well tolerated drugs. And these can be given once in daily. Do not usually require dose titrations. Definitely a common dose in case of hypertension. It is a very common dose in case of hypertension, 25 mg per day of hydrochlorothiazide. Further, thiazides have a additive and synergistic effect when combined with other hypertensive drugs. Only thiazide is prescribed. Thiazides may be used for the treatment of nephrogenic diabetes insipidus and hypercalciuria and recurrent calcium stones in the kidney. For these patients, this can be given, and it will be available in 12.5 mg and 25 mg, 50 mg. It will be available. Indications and dosages: edema and hypertensions. It will be given. Edema for adults 25 to 100 mg for 6 months to 12 years stage, 1 to 2 mg per kg orally, and it can be given a single dose or divided dose. It can be according to the patient condition, according to the thing, the dose can be increased more and more. And children, if it less than 6 months, doses can be 3 mg per kg per day. Two divided doses can be given. Hypertension 12.5 mg to 50 mg once daily, and dose may be minimum of 37.5 mg per day for 6 months. And drug interaction: antidiuretic drugs. Thiazide diuretics may impair glucose tolerance and causes hyperglycemia and may decrease hypoglycemic effect. Antihypertensives. So when it is given the antihypertensives, they may have a further increase. So both adi antihypertensive, inkokati idi antihypertensive. So both may leads to the hypertension. That has to be keep in mind. So hypertension, hypoglycemia, we have to keep in your mind when you are administering this diuretics. Amphotericin B, when a patient is on amphotericin B or corticosteroids, so it may be have a chances of hypokalemia. So that has to be remembered. When the patient is on alcohol, opioids, so orthostatic hypertension effect will be have. Lithium means lithium tox. They may land up in the lithium toxicity or NSAIDs. So adverse effects: headache, dizziness, vertigo, paresthesia, restlessness, weakness. So serious orthostatic hypotension, vascularity, eye effects, GIT effects, hepatic and metabolic effects, some of the respiratory, skin rashes, and other things also be seen very clearly. Contraindications: hypersensitivity to, when they are hypersensitive to hydrochlorothiazide, and the patient with anuria, and the patient is in anuria also, it should be avoided. Pregnancy, it is a risk to the fetus. Elderly, use with caution. Definitely it is appeared in the breast milk, so it has to be avoided. Children cannot be used. Potassium sparing diuretics. Potassium sparing diuretics are spironolactones, aldosterone. These are the aldosterone antagonist. So it is against the aldosterone. So what will be think? Spironolactones is synthetic steroid. It is a synthetic steroid chemically related to the mineralocorticoid aldosterone. So aldosterone acts on the cells of the late, distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct. So this aldosterone will act at the level of late distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct by attacking, by attaching of the intercellular mineralocorticoid receptors. So this mineralocorticoid receptors will get attached to that, and including formation of aldosterone induced protein. So this what will be here, AIP causes sodium reabsorption and potassium excretion. So what will be happening over here means aldosterone, this aldosterone will act on the distal convoluted tubules and collecting tube duct. So whenever it acts on that, so what will be happening? Acting on that by how it will be acting? By attaching this mineralocorticoid receptor to mineralocorticoid receptor and inducing, this will mineralocorticoid will induce the formation of aldosterone. So aldosterone induced protein. What is that? Aldosterone AIP. It is formation of aldosterone induced protein. So this aldosterone induced protein, what will causes means sodium will be reabsorbed. So whatever the sodium will be there in the convoluted tubule, that will be reabsorbed. The potassium will be secreted. So this is the action. The spironolactone act in the interstitial side of the renal tubular cell. So interstitial side of the renal tubular cell, it attaches the mineralocorticoid receptors and competitively inhibit the formation of AIPs. And then it causes the reabsorption and secretion. This spironolactone is a mild diuretic. Because of that, most of the sodium is filtered and has been reabsorbed in the proximal part of the tubule. However, it is an antagonist to the potassium loss. It is against the potassium loss caused by the diuretics, and have a slightly adds their nitriuretic effect. The weak diuretics and it is mostly used in combination with more efficacy diuretics. Available in 25 to 50 mg, 100 mg also. So it is given in edema, hypertension, diuretic, severe heart failure in case of primary hyperaldosteronism. So these doses are given. 100 mg usually divided doses in case of hypertension, 50 to 100 mg, and in case of diuretics with hypokalemia, patient is in hypokalemia, 25 to 100 mg can be given. So drug interaction, when it is interacted with AZ inhibitors or lithium type, in case of lithium toxicity can be seen. In case of AZ inhibitor, severe hyperkalemia. Contraindications when it is hypersensitivity, anuria, and hypokalemia, Addison disease. So this amiloride. So what is amiloride means? It is a renal epithelial sodium sodium channel blocker. So this will block the sodium channels. So thiazides and loop diuretics act by causing net loss of sodium and water in the urine, and an effect called diuresis. High sodium load reaching the distal convoluted tubule result in net loss of potassium ions from the body, which may result in hypokalemia. So what will be happening? High sodium load will be reaching in the distal convoluted tubule. So whenever it reaches, there will be loss of potassium from the body. So loss of potassium from the body, which may causes the hypokalemia. So amiloride and other potassium sparing diuretics are useful to offset and counter of the potassium excreting effect of this strong diuretics. So carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. This carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are acetazolamide. So this acetazolamide, which is a reversible and non-competitively inhibit the CA in the proximal tubular cells, resulting in CO2 hydration, slowing the CO2 hydration and reducing the availability of hydrogen to exchange within the luminal. So with luminal hydrogen and sodium and hydrogen antiporter. So inhibition of this carbonic in the brush border decreases the H2CO3 breakdown. So this H2CO2 breakdown will be decreased in the tubular luminal fluids, and so that less CO2 diffuses into the cells. So that less CO2 will be diffuses into the cells and more bicarb will be passes into the urine. So the acetazolamide therefore causes the production of alkaline urine. So alkaline urine is produced and rich in bicarb levels, which accompanied by both the sodium and potassium levels. So extrarenal actions of acetazolamide is lowering of intraocular pressure. So not only for this, intraocular pressure will be lowering, decreased gastric HCl secretion, increased CO2 levels in the brain with lowering of pH and alteration in the carbon dioxide transport in the lungs. 250 mg it can be given in case of edema, glaucoma, epilepsy and acute mountain sickness. This is also one thing it can be given. Osmotic diuretics. So your mannitol will come. This osmotic diuretic, the drugs will freely filtered at the glomerulus, poorly absorbed in the renal tubules, are relatively pharmacological inert. This mannitol is a non-selective low molecular weight. So because of that only it may crosses the blood-brain barrier. So mannitol, which weight is given in IV, and it exerts osmotic effect. So it is having an osmotic effect by being largely confined to extracellular spaces. Only relatively small amount is metabolized, increasing the extracellular osmolarity. So extracellular caused by IV administration of the mannitol. So there will be increased extracellular osmolarity. So and reduces the movement of intracellular water into the extracellular spaces or vascular spaces. So it will reduces the movement of the fluid or the water into the extracellular spaces or vascular spaces from intracellular. So this action is the best by which mannitol reduces the intracranial pressure, intracranial edema, elevated intraocular pressures. Mannitol readily diffuses through the glomerulus of the kidney over wide range of the normal or impaired kidney function. Mannitol hinder tubular reabsorption of the water and increases the sodium and chloride excretion. So by elevating the osmolarity of glomerular filtration. So 10 to 20% of infusion. Pharmacokinetics. This pharmacokinetics indications, so it can be given for reducing the cerebral edema, intracranial pressure, intraocular pressure in case of treatment of oliguria, in case of treatment of prevention of oliguria, diuresis in drug intoxications. These drugs can be given in according to this dosages. Drug interaction, nephrotoxic drugs. So these nephrotoxic drugs are aminoglycosides, some cyclosporins, when it is given with that, the renal, it may have a chances of renal toxicity and renal failure. Lithium, when it is given with mannitol, it may increases the urinary excretion of lithium. So definitely we have to monitor for lithium levels. Adverse effects are CNS, headache, dizziness, seizures, edema, hypertension, hypovolemia, and congestive heart failure, tachycardia, angina like chest pain, thrombophlebitis, and some of the GAT problems. Common problems, these are nausea, vomiting, dryness, thirst, mouth, and metabolic problems, electrolyte imbalance, dehydration, ENT means blood vision. So these are the nursing consideration. Assess the patient for vital signs. Definitely we have to assess the patient for vital signs when they are standing and sitting. All these things, rate, rhythm, and lung sounds has to be seen, and before and after administration of the drug. Ocular assessment, so vision assessments can be done. Intraocular pressure should be checked, and ocular status, vision, intraocular pressure and pain, and neurological status, signs and symptoms of increased ICPs, so we have to check it for that. Status of renal status, so blood urea, nitrogen, uric acid, glucose in the urine, that has to be checked. Hematological fluid, electrolyte, and then in that IO ratio, edema, hydration, weight checking, ABG analysis in case of CBC analysis, and the serum sodium potassium levels in case of any hypokalemia, vomiting, fatigue, postural hypertension, tachycardia, weakness, and cramps in the legs. At that time we have to check it for the potassium levels, and magnesium levels also be checked. Blood sugar levels and blood pH is also to be checked. And this is for the metabolic acidosis. So metabolic acidosis and hydration status. Metabolic acidosis, when the patient is restless or drowsy, it has to be seen. Hydration status, by seeing the dry mucosa, skin, gut, thirst. Instruct patient to drink more water, that is 8 to 10 glasses of water. If contraindicated only, if not contraindicated only, instruct them to have. Instruct the patient to avoid sudden change of positions, and advise the patient to take with food or with any milk because to prevent GI symptoms. And instruct the patient to avoid potassium rich diets like oranges, salt substitutes, dried apricots, and then bananas, dates, alcohol, all this type potassium rich diet. Advise the patient to take drugs as per the schedule, as per early, and then because it should be given in daytime itself, because the patient will be having increased urination, so in night time he may face sleeplessness problems. Instructs patient not to modify the drug therapy without any physician consultation. Advise the patient to report if he or he having symptoms like mental confusion, drowsiness, muscle cramps, weakness, dizziness, nausea, joint pain, diarrhea, lethargia, headache, all this type of things, if we have to indicate to the physician. Thank you. So we have discussed today regarding the calcium channel blockers and diuretics. So this diuretics are high efficacy, medium efficacy, and then low efficacy drugs are there. In low efficacy, potassium sparing diuretics, and then we had seen potassium sparing diuretics. Not only that, we had seen what is this osmotic diuretics, and then thiazide type of drugs. So this thing, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. So potassium sparing drugs, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, and osmotic diuretics. Medium high efficacy drugs, low furosemide is one of them. Medium efficacy, hydroxychlorothiazides. So this is the classification of the diuretics. So thank you. So with this we'll complete the topic.